All right, greetings. This is Jim, AG6IF, Alpha Golf 6 India Foxtrot. This is part 5 of our review session, Gordon West Technician Class Ham Radio License Book. This is part 5. We've got 3 sections to go, and then we'll be all the way through the Technician Class book. So thank you for following along. I am in Southern California. I teach this class, Gordo's book, and I teach the general, and I am starting to teach the extra also. I may follow up with some additional information or additional videos about the general review. If this is useful, I'll know right away if my students appreciate it and they get any benefit from it, and others as well. We'll see if we can continue on. So we're on section. There's 3 sections to go. We're on track 3, CD4, page 175 in our book today, starting out. Page 175. This section is on antennas. Probably one of my favorite topics, besides digital operating, antennas. So we're going to talk about dipole antennas and how you do antenna calculations and so on. This is a little kind of a homebrew dipole antenna. It's cut for 220 megahertz, 1.25 meters. This is a half wave. Dipoles are half wave antennas. All dipoles are half wave antennas. If they work properly, they'll be half wave. Okay. So anyway, this can fit onto an HT. It's an adapter like that. So this is used to track a friend's drone. He has a little beacon on the drone, and if he loses it, he can find it with an antenna like this. Okay, but we're also going to use this to discuss different aspects that we're talking about. So, okay, very good. Page 175. The first question we're going to talk about, Tango 9 Alpha 03. Which of the following describes a simple dipole mounted so that the conductor is parallel to the Earth's surface? Okay, parallel. This is a dipole. So this would be a dipole mounted parallel to the Earth's surface, just like that. Okay, our answer is a horizontally polarized antenna. So the electrical field of this antenna is horizontal. It's horizontal to the Earth's surface. Therefore, the receivers of this signal that are mounted horizontally are going to have a much easier time hearing your signal than somebody who is mounted vertically, for example. So most HF is done on horizontal polarization. Not all. There's still vertical antennas out there. But once the HF signal bounces off the ionosphere and comes back down, it might be different. It's tumbling and so forth. So, but that's a horizontal polarization as far as the dipole goes, just like that. So this question, which of the following describes a simple dipole mounted so the conductor is parallel to the Earth's surface, a horizontally polarized antenna? There you go, just like that. All right, what's next? 176. T9 Alpha 10, in which direction is the radiation strongest from a half-wave dipole antenna in free space? Okay, the answer is broadside to the antenna. That means a dipole like this radiates off the sides this way and this way. This way. It does not radiate off the ends. Does not radiate off the ends. Okay, broadside to the antenna and this way. So it's got a pattern that's a figure 8. Basically nothing on the sides. The lobes come off both sides, broadside to the antenna. Make sense? Okay. What's the approximate length in inches of a 6-meter half-wave dipole antenna? All right, now there's all kinds of calculations about how to calculate antenna. But I'm going to show you some of those, but I want you to think about this. A 6-meter antenna, 6 meters, if it's a half wavelength, That's 3 meters. A half wave of 6, half of 6 is 3. So it's asking for the length in inches, right? Start with just half of 6 is 3 meters. And let's just estimate that 3 meters is about like 3 yards, maybe a little bit longer or shorter. So around 30 inches or so. I'm sorry, half wave, half of 6 meters. Okay. So anyway, the answer is 112 inches. So when you do antenna calculations, it's in feet, but you got to convert to inches. So half of a half wave length wire dipole for 6 meters is about 112 inches. Okay. It's pretty simple. The real calculation for a half wave dipole is 468 divided by frequency. Okay. Now they gave us 6 meters, so you got to calculate what is the megahertz for 6 meters. Go back to 300 Flying Monkeys. They gave meters, we want frequency, you cover it up. 6 into 300 is 50 megahertz. Come back over here, 468 divided by 50. Okay, and that's going to give you feet, and you have to convert to inches. So 112 inches is the answer. So that's the step you follow to make that, to answer that question. How would you change a dipole antenna to make it resonant on a higher frequency? Or any antenna for that matter. On a higher frequency, you make it shorter. How do you change a guitar string to make it resonant on a higher frequency? Okay, you put your finger on the fretboard and you make the string shorter. The string will resonate at a higher frequency. It's the same exact phenomenon. All right, I want you to realize that. Okay. If you shorten it, it will be higher. If you lengthen it, it will be longer. Okay, just think about that a second. Which of the following is true regarding vertical antennas? Vertical antenna. All right. The answer is the electric field is perpendicular to the earth. So the vertical antenna would be vertical. The electric field is what describes the polarization of an antenna, if you recall from an earlier video. So the perpendicular to the earth, okay, is the answer to the question. The electric field is perpendicular to the earth with a vertical antenna. All right. We're on 177, and let's see, T9. Let's find the right one. 02. Yeah. T9A08 says, what's the approximate length in inches of a quarter wave antenna on 146 megahertz? All right. We talked about the half wave antenna. Now a quarter wave antenna. Our calculation is 234 divided by frequency. They gave us frequency of 146. So we have 234 divided by 146 is a little less than 1, I believe, and or a little less than 2. And our answer is going to be 19 inches. So we got the feet, we got to multiply by 12 or divide by 12 to get the inches. Multiply by 12, I'm sorry. So the answer is 19 inches. What is the approximate length in inches of a quarter wave vertical for 146? Okay, 19. All right. 234 divided by 146 is 1.6 feet, right? And they want answers in inches, multiply 1.6 by 12. And that's how we do that. I don't want to confuse anybody. Okay, what type of antennas are quads, Yagis, and dish antennas? They are directional antennas. If you've got DirecTV or Dish Network, you've got a dish antenna on your house, they're directional. They're pointing at a satellite that's geostationary. It's staying in the same place in the sky all the time. A Yagi antenna puts all of its signal or most of it in the forward direction. The Yagi is a directional antenna. The quad is a directional antenna also. Highly directional. A01 on page 178. What is a beam antenna? Okay, a beam antenna is an antenna that concentrates signals in one direction. In one direction. A beam antenna, examples of beam antennas are Yagis and Yagis primarily. Concentrates a signal in one direction, like a flashlight. It's a beam antenna. A lot of TV antennas are beam type antennas. And they're also Yagis. A lot of TV antennas are Yagi designed. All right. 01, 179. Which of the following methods is used to locate sources of noise interference or jamming? Basically, you use a radio direction finding. Okay, that's the method, radio direction finding. You use a beam antenna that's sensitive in one direction, and you can steer the antenna around to locate the transmitter, the hidden transmitter. Yesterday, I went on a transmitter hunt here in Southern California, a 6-meter transmitter hunt. It's held twice a year. It's a lot of fun. AA6DD Will Anderson puts it on. He's an expert in 6-meter frequency, 6-meter antennas, 6-meter T hunting, and we're lucky to have him here in Southern California. Twice a year, if you ever get a chance, if you're here in Southern California, look up Will Anderson. AA6DD is his call sign. Okay. It's a lot of fun besides. Okay, CO2. CO2. Which of these items would be useful for hidden transmitter hunt? The answer is a directional antenna. That's very useful for a hidden transmitter hunt. None of the other stuff in the list is very helpful compared to a directional antenna, so keep that in mind. That is the correct answer. All right, let's see here. A11 on page 180. What is meant by the gain of an antenna? Okay, the gain of the antenna is the increase in signal strength in a specified direction when compared to a reference antenna. This could be a reference antenna. Let's say the gain is 0 dB of gain. It compared to a directional antenna that might be many dBs of directionality or gain. Okay, so that is the increase in signal strength in a specified direction. You have to know which direction your antenna needs to be pointed in, unlike me with my test antenna in the T-hunt going the wrong direction because it's reflecting off both sides. The signal could come in the front or the back. Anyway, A03. T3A03, bottom of page 180. What antenna polarization is normally used for long distance, weak signal, CW, which is Morse code, and single sideband contacts using VHF and UHF bands. We may have talked about this before. Weak signal is always horizontal polarization. Horizontal polarization, like so. Your dipole is horizontal polarized if you want to work weak signals, because everybody out there is using horizontal polarization for weak signal work. All right. 04. What can happen if the antenna at opposite ends of a VHF, UHF radio link are not using the same polarization? Okay. My transmitter is on horizontal and your receiver is on vertical. What happens? All right. What happens is the signals could be significantly weaker. That's B. Answer B. Signals are significantly weaker, and they are significantly weaker to the point where the receiver may not hear your signal at all. Okay. What's the reason to use a properly mounted 5/8 wavelength antenna for VHF and UHF mobile service? Okay, so now we're talking about on your mobile, on your vehicle. Okay, and we didn't talk about 5/8 wave yet, but the 5/8 offers a lower angle of radiation and more gain than a quarter wave length antenna, and it usually provides improved coverage. More of the signal goes to the horizon with a 5/8 wave antenna compared to a quarter wave antenna. Radiation angle that is desirable in some cases. My 5/8 wave antenna vastly improved my coverage for the local repeaters when I switched from a quarter wave to a 5/8 wave. It was easy to see. All right, A13 on 182. Why are VHF and UHF mobile antennas often mounted in the center of the vehicle roof? And the reason why is the roof-mounted antenna normally provides the most uniform radiation pattern. If it's in the center, the radiation pattern is going to be more uniform. Okay. 14, alpha 14, which of the following terms describes a type of loading when referring to antennas? A loading coil. So, alrighty, let's see. Answer is inserting an inductor, remember, a coil of wire, in the radiating portion of the antenna to make it electrically longer. So an antenna that has a loading coil in it will make it electrically longer, like this one. There's a couple of them here. You can easily see coil of wire that makes the antenna electrically longer. And hopefully it works better. All right. So we talked about the length, the calculations, 468 divided by frequency for half wave, 234 divided by frequency, and the length is in feet for a quarter wave. We didn't talk about full wave, and that's okay. The dipole radiates off the broadside. All right. Okay. We're done with antennas. We have 2 more sections to go. We'll talk about coax next. Page 183, coax. Coax is a feed line. How you connect your transmitter to your antenna makes a difference. Coax cable is typically used for amateur radio and 50 ohm version. The satellite TV and the television coax is also coaxial. It's the same style, but it's a different type. It's not 50 ohms. It's not interchangeable. Okay. Which of the following is a common use of coax cable? The first question on 183. B, carrying RF signals between the radio and the antenna. If you go out, if you've got a dish network or a direct TV, there's a piece of coax, usually it's white, and it comes off of the antenna and snakes around and finally ends up in your back of your TV. That is a piece of coax. And it carries the signal, almost all the signal between the antenna and the receiver. You don't want a lot of it leaking out, or your signal strength may not be strong enough. Okay. T9B03, why is coax cable used more often than any other feed line for amateur radio antenna systems? And the reason it is easy to use and requires few special installation considerations. Piece of coax, it's easy to run. It handles the weather pretty well. You can hide it easily. And as long as it doesn't get wet, water will kill a piece of coax, then it'll last a long, long time. Okay? Remember, moisture and water is a really, really bad situation for coax. Okay, BO2 on 184. What's the impedance of most commonly used coax cable in typical amateur radio installations? I mentioned it a minute ago. Yeah, 50 ohms. 50 ohms is what we use for our coax in amateur radio. Okay. If you slam your car door on it and distort its shape, its round shape, the impedance may be different. So you do have to protect it a little bit. Don't step on it if it's running across the sidewalk. Try not to step on it. It depends on the center of the coax and the outer part of the coax remaining the same distance apart throughout its whole run. That's important. If you step on it and squash the cable, or bend it around a tight corner, You can change that. Okay. All right. PO5. What generally happens as the frequency of a signal passing through coax cable is increased? What happens when it's increased? The loss increases. So faster frequencies are more apt to leap out of that cable and not stay inside the cable. Higher frequency requires better cable. All right. Big, thick coaxes, generally always better. Not always, but generally better than thin coax, tiny little coax. You want that signal to stay inside. All right, BO7. Which of the following is true of a PL259 coax connector? Which is true? PL259, they are commonly used at HF frequencies. Let's see if I have one here. I don't think I have one close by. I've got some in the drawer behind me. Okay, they're used at HF frequencies. The PL259 is very common. You've probably seen one like that right there. Okay. Which of the following connectors is most suitable for frequencies above 400 megahertz? And the answer is the N-type connector. The N-type connector is in the middle on this photograph. It has less loss than the first one, the PL259. It works better at higher frequencies. It's a lot more solid and stable as well. All right. Okay, C11, what is the disadvantage of air core coax cable when compared to foam or solid dielectric types? What's the disadvantage? Okay, the disadvantage is that it requires special techniques to prevent water absorption. Here's a piece of air core coax right here. And it's very thick. It's a little bit hard to work with. It's not very common for the average person to work with. The professionals probably work with it all the time. But if it gets any water or moisture in it, like any coax, it can be damaged. Some organizations run nitrogen inside of it, so inside the conduit, so it keeps the moisture out. But it requires special techniques to prevent water absorption. That's the answer to the question, so keep that in mind. Okay, CO9. Which of the following is the most common cause of failure of coax cables? Been talking about it. I'm sure everyone's got that one. A, moisture contamination. Moisture in the coax is a bad deal. Moisture can get in a lot of different ways. If the coax is very old and laying in the sun for years, it can develop cracks in its outer insulation, and moisture can get inside. Once that happens, it's done for. It's got to be replaced. Okay, let's see here. What's next? 08. Why should coax connectors exposed to the weather be sealed against water intrusion? Okay, that should be pretty obvious also. I'm going to read the correct answer. To prevent an increase in feed line loss. If the coax is failing, it's got moisture in it, you're going to have a lot of loss in the feed line. A lot of the power is not going to make it to the other end where you want it to go. All right, 186, we're on page 186. C10, right at the top. Why should the outer jacket of a coax cable be resistant to ultraviolet light? I just mentioned that a minute ago. Ultraviolet light can damage the jacket and allow water to enter the cable. So this is all about water, all about moisture. Not a good thing for coax. Sure you're catching on by now. Okay, B10. What electrical difference exists between the smaller RG58 and the larger RG8 coax cables? All right. Answer, RG8 has less loss at any given frequency. Okay. RG8, the bigger, better coax, has less loss than the smaller, tiny, cheaper coax. Okay. The loss accelerates at higher frequencies, but between the two of them, the better RG8 has less loss. Okay. There's a loss chart You can look online. It's rated in dB of loss per 100 feet, generally. We talked about how dB works. 3 dB is half. If you have 3 dB of loss in your feed line, that's half of the power left the transmitter is not going to arrive at the antenna. It's lost in the cable itself. It's heat. So 3 dB of loss is a lot of loss. It's half of your power never made it to the antenna. If you started out with 100 watts, 50 watts only got to the other end. If you started out with 4 watts, in case of a citizens band radio, only 2 watts got to the other end. So you can see the dB loss is very significant. You want to keep that as low as possible. Okay. All right. Let's see here. Interesting to look at the coax loss charts on the internet. All right. T9, B11, which on top of page 187, which of the following types of feed line has the lowest loss at VHF and UHF? Okay. So there is, you don't have to refer to the chart, but the answer is air insulated hard line. Air insulated hard line has the lowest loss. It's the one that was harder to work with. It's much better, this guy here, but it's hard to work with and it's fairly expensive, but it does have the lowest loss. Okay, air insulated hard line. CO2 on 187. Which of the following instruments can be used to determine if an antenna is resonant at the desired operating frequency? Which of the following instruments? I'm going to read the correct answer only. An antenna analyzer. An analyzer will test the antenna and tell you if it is resonant and where it is resonant. Okay? The rest of those answers, don't even think about them. Don't listen to them. Don't read them. An antenna analyzer is what you want. CO3, what in general terms is standing wave ratio, SWR? Okay, in general terms. A is the answer, a measure of how well a load is matched to a transmission line. Okay, a measure of how well a load is matched to a transmission line. If it's perfect, it's 1-to-1. If it's matched perfectly, it's 1-to-1. You don't need to know that part. Not for this exam, anyway. Okay, AO5 on 188. Where should an inline SWR meter be connected to monitor the standing wave ratio of the station antenna system? Answer, in series with the feed line between the transmitter and the antenna. So we have transmitter, SWR meter, feed line, antenna. Okay. B01, why is it important to have a low SWR in an antenna system that uses coax cable feed line? Answer is to allow the efficient transfer of power and reduce losses. You want all the power that leaves the transmitter to get to the load. The antenna is the load. If the SWR is 1-to-1, then all the power that left the transmitter got to the antenna. Okay, that's why it's important. All right. CO4, what reading on an SWR meter indicates a perfect impedance match between the antenna and the feed line? I just mentioned that. That the answer is 1-to-1. That's perfect. All power leaving got to the antenna. All right, 1-to-1. CO5 on top of 189. What is the approximate SWR value above which the protection circuits in most solid-state transmitters begin to reduce the transmitter power? If the SWR is too high, the transmitter will begin to reduce its power to protect itself. Okay, and the answer is 2-to-1. If it's 2-to-1 or worse, the transmitter is going to begin to pull the power back to protect itself. Some of that power is bouncing off the load and coming back the other way down the antenna feed line and hitting the transmitter. That's not a good thing. Okay. All right. CO6, what does an SWR reading of 4 to 1 indicate? 4 to 1 SWR. And the answer is an impedance mismatch. It's a large impedance mismatch, 4 to 1. No math required in that. It's just a large impedance mismatch. Okay. Don't overthink that one. That was an easy one. Okay, B09. Later on, you may have to do some calculations on that, but for the technician, you just need to know it's a large impedance mismatch. Top of 190, what might cause erratic changes in SWR readings? Erratic changes. A loose connection is one thing in an antenna or feed line. If you've got a loose connection, I don't have antenna close by, this one. If I have a loose connection right here, that could cause erratic SWR readings when the antenna goes from 50 ohms to some other value. All right. CO8. What instrument other than an SWR meter could you use to determine if a feed line and antenna are properly matched? Okay. The answer is a directional wattmeter. Directional wattmeter. It's a wattmeter that measures the power going in this direction and the power going in this direction. They look like this, and there's generally two needles on there. One of them is measuring the forward power, and one's measuring the reflected power. So you want the reflected power to be near zero, and that's how you can tell what the reflected power is. If both needles are up, and you've got reflected power you need to worry about. Excuse me. CO7, bottom of 190, what happens to power lost in a feed line? I mentioned it earlier, it's converted into heat. It warms the cable up. Converted into heat. B04, top of 191, what does an antenna tuner do? Okay, an antenna tuner, it matches the antenna system impedance to the transceiver's output impedance. That's all it does. It matches the antenna to the transmitter. It doesn't change the antenna, it just matches the two together. If this one's too big, it makes it smaller. It matches them. It doesn't fix a bad antenna. All right. All right. What is the primary purpose of a dummy load? A dummy load is a big resistor, 50 ohm resistor, to prevent radiation of signals when making tests. I have one right here. Here's a dummy load. This one is a 60 watt dummy load. It has a PL259. It plugs into the back of the transmitter. If I want to test my radio, I can plug this in place of the antenna, and I can transmit. The power will go into this and not radiate. Okay, a dummy load. Prevents the radiation of signals. All right, C13, bottom of 191. What does a dummy load consist of? Consists of a non-inductive resistor and a heat sink. Non-inductive resistor and a heat sink. You can see the fins on here. They're designed to release heat into the air. So the power goes in, this gets warm, and the heat leaves these fins into the air to keep itself as cool as possible. Kind of see what I'm talking about here. That's a dummy load. It's a little one. You can get them larger. They come much larger. This one's for 60 watts. You can get them all the way up to 1,500 watts or more. And they can be the size of a 5-gallon pail. All right. So it's a non-inductive resistor and heat sink. All right, we're through that section. How about that? Let's see here. Getting close. Getting close. One section left. How about that? This is part 5 of my working my way through the Gordon West Technician Class License Manual. We're at the last section on page 193. We're going to talk about safety. Super important. Safety first. Okay, we're on 193. Talk about some grounding and some other things. All right, let's go. TA0A06. What is a good way to guard against electrical shock at your station? All these choices are correct. I'll read them off. Use a 3-wire cord that has a ground plug for AC powered equipment. The second one, connect all AC powered station equipment to a common safety ground. Now, G for ground. Think about that. C, use a circuit protected by a ground fault interrupter, a GFI. You know, the thing that blows when it's raining outside and all of your outside lights go dark? That's a GFI. Okay? They're generally in your bathrooms and your kitchen near any water source. They're supposed to protect you from getting a shock. So those three, that's all of the above. Good way to guard against electric shock. AO3, the next question. AO3, what is connected to the green wire in a 3-wire electrical AC plug? Okay, well, the answer is it's a safety ground. G, green for ground, it's a safety ground, okay? 3-wire. Most I think all new properties that built in the last 20 years have 3-wire electrical outlets. They have a safety ground built into them. Many years ago, I lived in a house that had only two prongs in the plugs, and so they've improved the safety of our electrical delivery system in our homes. Green, G for green, G for ground. All right. A08, what safety equipment should always be included in home-built equipment that's powered from AC power circuits? What should be in there? A fuse or circuit breaker that's in series with the AC hot conductor. Okay, a fuse. Remember that. A04, what is the purpose of a fuse in an electrical circuit? Fuse, I showed you one earlier. Here's one. It's typically used in mobile installations. What's the purpose of a fuse? It is to interrupt power in case of an overload. This is a 5-amp fuse. So this would protect a very small wire, fairly small wire, for overcurrent. You don't want the wire to receive too many currents and amperes and melt the wire or start a fire. The fuse will instead blow out. The little wire inside, you probably can't see it. There's a little tiny wire inside of there that's supposed to burn out instead of the wire that's connected to your equipment. It's much easier to change this than to change a wire that's burnt out in your go bag or something like that. You never want to put a larger fuse in place of a smaller one because that could cause a problem if too much current flows on that circuit. There's a question about that. We'll get to it. Okay, let's see here. A05, bottom of 194. Why is it unwise to install a 20-amp fuse in place of a 5-amp fuse? Hey, why do you want to do that? You don't want to do that. They look the same. They're different colors. This has 5 on it. The 20 has 20 on it. The wire inside the 20 is much, much thicker. So it's designed to carry more current. But if you replace the 5 with a 20 and say 10 amps flows through the circuit and the wire starts to burn because it can't handle 10 amps, then you've got a big problem on your hand, okay? Okay, so here's the question again. Why is it unwise to install a 20-amp fuse in place of a 5-amp fuse? The answer is excessive current could cause a fire. Okay, very simple. Don't want to do that. A11, top of 195. What kind of hazard might exist in a power supply when it's turned off and disconnected? Remember, capacitors store their energy in an electric field. Capacitors, you might receive an electric shock from a charge stored in a large capacitor. This charge could stay in that capacitor for many, many years if they're not designed to bleed the power off after the power gets turned off. Older devices, the capacitors stay charged up for a long, long time, and you can really get a nasty shock when they delivered the power into your fingertip. Okay? All right, and that's why. All right, D12. Which of the following precautions should be taken when measuring high voltages with a voltmeter? Okay, high voltages with a voltmeter. This is a voltmeter. It's my voltmeter. The answer is B. Ensure that the voltmeter and leads are rated for use at the voltages to be measured. Okay, that'll say on here what the maximum voltage you can use. These wires are very small. They're not very well insulated. This is designed for just hobbyist type use. I think they're rated for 600 volts, but I wouldn't want to touch 600 volts with this, I'll tell you right now. But 120 volts, yeah, I've used it for that. And a lot of low voltage, like 12 volts around my car or my ham shack, that kind of thing. No problem. No problem. So I want to talk about that one again. Which of the following precautions should be taken measuring high voltages with a voltmeter? This is important. Ensure the voltmeter and the leads are rated for use at the voltages to be measured. If you don't know what the voltage is, maybe you should stop for a minute and make sure that you've got the situation well in hand so you don't get hurt. But that's the answer to the question. I want you to get that one correct. A02, bottom of 195. How does current flowing through the body cause a health hazard? Okay. The answer is all these choices are correct. First of all, it heats the tissue. All right. Second, it disrupts the electrical functions of cells, including your heart. Not good. And third, it causes involuntary muscle contractions. So your hand might not be able to release the electricity, the hot wire you're touching, or maybe your hand jerks back and you impale it on something sharp. All kinds of different problems. Okay, so current flowing through the body is a no-no. You want to make sure that never happens to you. Okay, we're on 196. CO2 at the top. What is one way to recharge a 12-volt lead-acid station battery if the commercial power is out? Answer C. Connect the battery in parallel with the vehicle's battery and run the engine. There you go. Start your car, use some jumper cables if you have them, charge your battery back up, your second battery. I have a power pole sticking out through the grill of my car, and I can connect up the Anderson power poles like these to the front of that very easily without opening the trunk or hood or the doors, and I can take that to my battery and charge my battery from a distance using my car's alternator and my charging system. Very, very convenient. But don't forget, if you have a situation, you can always start your car and charge your 12-volt battery off of your car. Okay. A10, what can happen if a lead-acid storage battery is charged or discharged too quickly? Answer, the battery could overheat, give off flammable gas, or it could explode. Okay, plain and simple. A01 on the bottom of 196. Which of the following is a safety hazard of a 12-volt storage battery? Okay, safety hazard. The answer is B. Shorting the terminals can cause burns, fire, or an explosion. If you have a battery in a battery box and you drop a wrench into there and it shorts across the terminals, you will not forget that event for a long time. Let me tell you. Okay, so be careful with storage batteries. I always take some electrical tape and I cover up the top of the terminals so nothing can land on it by accident and cause a short. That's just me, but that's always served me well. TOA 09, what kind of hazard is presented by a conventional 12-volt storage battery? Answer is explosive gas can collect if not properly vented. Okay, so your battery bank should be properly vented. If you have them inside, I've got some batteries in my ham shack here. The whole ham shack runs off batteries, but they're sealed batteries. They don't leak flammable gas. Okay, they are sealed, 100% sealed. But they can give off explosive gas, and that's the answer to the question. B04, which of the following is an important safety precaution to observe when putting up an antenna tower? Okay, a tower, look for and stay clear of any overhead electrical wires. Okay, electrical wires, keep track of that. B06, what is the minimum safe distance from a power line to allow when installing an antenna? Okay, power line, not so good. so that if the antenna falls unexpectedly, no part of it can come closer than 10 feet to the power wires. 10 feet. Okay, so if there's power lines, make sure that if the antenna falls, here's your power lines. You don't want the antenna to fall onto the power lines. 10 feet or farther away. That's for safety. There's a question on the test, therefore, we need to pay attention to that. 10 feet is probably not enough, in my opinion, but 10 feet is the answer. So, okay, B09, top of 198. Why should you avoid attaching an antenna to a utility pole? We just talked about power lines and how dangerous they can be. C, the antenna could contact high voltage power lines, the power wires, okay? That's why. What is a good precaution to observe before climbing an antenna tower? This is BO2. Answer is put on a climbing harness and safety glasses. That's the answer to the question. There's another question about towers as well. Have to do with hard hats, but the answer to that question is put on a climbing harness and safety glasses. Okay. Under what circumstances is it safe to climb a tower without a helper or an observer? Never. It's never safe to climb a tower all by yourself. Never is the answer. All right. Let's see here. BO1, bottom of 198. When should members of a tower work team wear a hard hat and safety glasses? Okay. At all times. When any work is being done on the tower, at all times. Okay, if anyone's on the tower or working on the tower, hard hat, safety glasses. TOBO5. What is the purpose of a gin pole? A gin pole is used to lift tower sections or antennas. Okay, it's used to lift tower sections or antennas. Gin pole. BO7. Which of the following is an important safety rule to remember when using a crank-up tower? Crank-up tower. This type of tower must never be climbed unless it is in the fully retracted position. Okay. Recently, we have a news article come across that a ham climbed his tower, his crank-up tower. When it was up, I don't know why. Maybe it was stuck. But while he was on the tower, it fell. The tower slammed down, and anything sticking through the tower footrest and handrest where he was holding onto it was severed. Okay, that's your toes and your fingers. Never ever climb a crank-up tower unless it's down all the way. All right. B11. Which of the following establishes grounding requirements for amateur radio towers or antennas? Which of the following? Okay. The local electrical codes establish those guidelines. All right. Nobody else. The local electric codes. Okay, we're on page 200. Getting close to the end here. B08. What is considered to be a proper grounding method for a tower? Okay. If you want to start an argument with hams, discuss grounding with them. However, this question we want to answer properly so you get it right. And the answer is separate 8-foot ground rods for each tower leg, bonded to the tower and each other. Okay? So that's the proper answer. Separate 8-foot ground rods for each tower leg that are bonded to the tower and each other. All right, A08, what type of conductor is best to use for RF grounding? And the type of conductor that's best is called a flat strap. Looks like it's a piece of copper. It looks kind of like aluminum foil, but it's copper and it's about that wide. And the flat strap is what it's called. B12, let's see here. Which of the following is a good practice when installing ground wires on a tower for lightning protection? Answer, ensure that all connections are short and direct. Short and direct for lightning protection. No sharp bends. B10, Which of the following is true concerning grounding conductors used for lightning protection? Two questions about lightning protection, okay? This is important to the FCC. The answer is sharp bends must be avoided. So you'll probably get one of those questions on your exam. Hopefully you get both of them right. Sharp bends must be avoided, okay? A07. Which of these precautions should be taken when installing devices for lightning protection in a coaxial cable feed line? Answer is ground all the protectors to a common plate, which is in turn connected to an external ground. Your ground rod, external ground rod. Okay, that's the answer. CO4. What factors affect the RF exposure of people near an amateur station antenna? What factors affect their RF exposure? Answer is D. All these choices are correct. I'll read them. First one, frequency and power level of the RF field. Frequency and power level of the RF field. Some frequencies are more harmful, or some frequencies are less harmful. The second one, distance from the antenna to the person. What is the distance from the antenna to that person? And third one, radiation pattern of the antenna. So all of those things combine that affect the RF exposure of the people near the amateur station. All right. CO5 on 202. Why do exposure limits vary with frequency? Frequency, the radio frequency. D. Answer is D. The human body absorbs more RF energy at some frequencies than at others. So some frequencies are more harmful, or more, your body absorbs more of the frequencies than others. Okay. CO2, which of the following frequencies has the lowest value for the maximum permissible exposure limit? Okay, which of the following frequencies has the lowest value? Okay, the answer is 50 megahertz, which is, what band is that? What frequency? What meters is 50? Okay, cover the M. I can't resist. One more time. Cover up the M. They gave us 50. It's 6 meters. 6 meters. Your body absorbs a lot of 6-meter antenna energy. The magic band, 6 meters. Okay, that was CO2. And the answer is 50 megahertz. Okay, so that is the answer. 50 megahertz. Remember, 6 meters is the magic band. It's magic because it absorbs into your body. Think of it that way. CO3. What is the maximum power level that an amateur radio station may use at VHF frequencies before an RF exposure evaluation is required? This is per the FCC rules. Maximum value for VHF. Answer is C, 50 watts, PEP, which stands for peak envelope power, at the antenna. So if you make more than 50 watts at the antenna, you must do an RF exposure evaluation for your station. All right. At the antenna. Now, what's that mean? Think about it for a second. Your dB, if you've got 3 dB of loss in your feed line, and you start with 50 watts at your transmitter, how much power is at your antenna with 3 dB loss? Okay, you should have got the answer, 25 watts. You're well below what's required for an evaluation. You can always do an evaluation, but if you have a feed line loss and a 50-watt transmitter, you're going to be below the required level. Okay. All right, next question. What type of radiation are VHF and UHF radio signals? Answer, non-ionizing radiation. Okay, non-ionizing. CO6 at the top of 203, which of the following is an acceptable method to determine that your station complies with the FCC RF exposure regulations? The answer is all these choices are correct. Okay, so I'll read them. By calculation, based on the FCC Bulletin 65, that explains the power levels and so forth. The second one by calculation based on computer modeling. And the third one by measurement of field strength using calibrated equipment. Okay, and that's all these choices are correct is the correct answer. C08. Actions might amateur operators take to prevent exposure to RF radiation in excess of FCC supplied limits? And answer is A, relocate your antennas. Okay, relocate the antenna. My antenna used to be on top of my car. Now it's on the trunk of my car. I didn't want it 5 inches from the top of my head. I decided it was better to put it on the trunk. Am I right or wrong? I don't know. It's my choice. It wasn't over the limit or anything, but it was easy enough to do, and that's what I decided to do. If you go out to my YouTube channel, you will find me showing a video where I'm holding a light bulb in my hand near the antenna, and the light bulb is on. It's radiating light. It's not plugged into anything. I'm just holding a blank light bulb in my hand, and the light bulb is on. So that's energy coming from my RF, my VHF antenna that was on top of my car, and that's why I decided to move it to the trunk. Okay, very good. The name of that video, by the way, is Wireless Lighting Ham Radio Style, if you want to go watch it. It's kind of funny, actually. Okay, CO9, we're getting close. How can you make sure your station stays in compliance with RF safety regulations? Answer is by reevaluating the station whenever an item or of equipment is changed. So you do an evaluation, and if you make changes, you do another evaluation. You write that in your logbook, and you're good to go. You need to worry a lot more about this if you're making more power, if you've got big power amplifiers and so forth, or you've got a lot of people right next to your antennas. More concern. Okay? All right, 204. C11, what is the definition of a duty cycle? Duty cycle during the averaging time for RF exposure. The answer is C, the percentage of time the transmitter is transmitting. If the transmitter is transmitting all the time, the duty cycle for the exposure is much higher than if it's only transmitting once in a while. Okay. Next question, C13. Yeah, it was C11, C12. Sorry. Here we go. How does RF radiation differ from ionizing radiation? Radioactivity. Answer is RF radiation does not have sufficient energy to cause genetic damage. Okay. 13, C13 on 204. If the averaging time for exposure is 6 minutes, how much power density is permitted if the signal is present for 3 minutes? Half that much, and absent for 3 minutes, rather than being present for the entire 6 minutes. Okay, the answer is 2 times as much. So the averaging time for exposure, 6 minutes. The power density permitted is twice as much if the duration is half as much. Okay, straightforward. 2 times as much is the answer. C10. Why is duty cycle one of the factors used to determine safe RF radiation exposure limits? Okay, why is that? Let's find the answer. It's A, it affects the average exposure of people to radiation. Duty cycle, if it's on all the time, it's different than if it's only on an hour a day. Okay, that's the duty cycle. All right, CO7, we're at bottom of 205. This is the last question in the Gordon West Technician Class Manual. We're on page 205, T0CO7. What could happen if a person accidentally touched your antenna while you were transmitting? Okay, not good. B, they might receive a painful RF burn, an RF burn. Okay, and his hair is standing up, an RF burn. So he's going to end up with an RF burn. It could be rather serious if there is a lot more power than 1 watt is different than 1,500 watts. Okay, that is the last question in this section, the safety questions. We've made it all the way through in 5 segments here. The technician class amateur radio license from Gordon West. This is version 2014 through 2018. Like I said, I teach this class, and it's a great class, and it's a great hobby to get involved with. There's a lot of great people to get involved with. Red Cross, Salvation Army, ARES, ARES, RACES, RACES. There's faith-based groups you can get involved with for. There is just a lot of fun in this hobby. So thank you very much. I hope you get your exam out of the way, and hope to work you on the air. My name is Jim in Southern California, Alpha Golf 6 India Foxtrot. Are always glad it's Friday with a 6 in the middle, according to one of my friends there. So everybody have a nice weekend, and hope to hear you on the air. Thanks for watching 7-3 from AG6IF.